Hello, everybody. Good to see you all again. Let me get my interpretation lined up. There we go. Now I need to get gallery view. There we go. Okay, well, let's get started with the mandala. Mike, do you want to offer the mandala for us?
Thanks. Good morning. Sashi Puki Jukshing Me Tok Tram Rira Bling Shi Nyan De Gen Padi Sangye Shing Du Mikte Wargi Jokun Nam Dak Shing La Drupar Shok Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayam.
I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I achieve Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, I will reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. Okay, let's do some rejoicing. Who do I want to start with? Let's start with Svetlana.
Oh, hello, everyone. Hello, the Venerable Sumati. I'd like to rejoice that I have wonderful colleagues and wonderful boss. Yesterday, our boss, she invited us to the lunch, and it was paid by her. And for me, it's like amazing generosity sign. And later in the evening, she invited all of us to the bowling, and we had lots of fun in the bowling, and it also was paid as it was said by her, and there were lots of delicious food and nice beverages, and what was the most important, that we had lots of fun all together, and I rejoice in it, and dedicated that people get along with each other and live in harmony and in peace.
What do you do as a job?
An analyst, data analytics, as a marketing intelligence, in marketing intelligence team.
Oh, okay. Well, that's must have been a lot of fun. I haven't been bowling in years. That probably was really fun. Good. And that's, I think you're wishing that everybody could get along is very powerful. And boy, I sure wish that too. Okay, Katrina, you're next. Good to see you again.
Hello, I also am very glad to see you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Olga, can you help me? Thank you. Я очень радуюсь тому, что у нас есть живые встречи и онлайн-встречи. Сегодня мы провели одну из онлайн-встреч, где рассуждали про систему семян. И я рада снова иметь возможность быть на занятии, не только смотреть запись.
On this class, not only to see online. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. We're glad to have you back again. Okay. Olga, the translator, do you want to rejoice?
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. Also to share my joy with you. So today I made some donation to help a girl who needs a notebook, MacBook, for translating Dharma. So I decided to help her because I also need it for the second is that it's a very powerful action to translate Dharma for all the people around the world. So I'm very happy for this.
And that's what's going to get you the Dharma in your future. So very good.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed with people that can translate. I can barely speak English, so I'm just so proud of all of you. Okay, who's next? Mike's looking at the ceiling. I'm not sure where he is. There he is. Okay, Mike, what do you have to rejoice in?
There we go. I can rejoice in I am taking I'm taking another class that is centered around meditation, and I am in I'm in like a homework club with a couple other people, and we're like hosting reviews of the classes and like reviews of the homeworks. And one of the guys in the group is having trouble with the meditation assignments and doesn't want to move ahead until he doesn't want to submit the homeworks until he has the meditations done, because he doesn't want to be dishonest about doing the meditations, and he doesn't feel like he's completing the meditations because he can't get into like single pointed focus or whatever. So so everybody in the homework group kind of banded together, and we're all completing the rest of our meditations for the course in order to submit the homeworks. But he is going to be tracking all of our progress through completing our meditations and rejoicing in our successful completion and like helping us complete the meditations. But this was just like something that came out of thin air last night, and we found out that he was having trouble with the meditations, and then somebody came up with this plan, and now as of this morning we're all putting in the chat, class 3 meditation completed, class 6 meditation completed, and then he's saying, all right, I rejoice in class 3 meditation completed, and I recorded it down on the sheet and I recorded, you know what I mean? So it's like he's getting involved, and it's it's nice.
Good. I think one of the problems with some of these homework assignments is, well, how can I put it? He's not going to be perfect. We're not going to be perfect at this stage in our training. So the important thing is that he's trying. If he's not getting the meditations done because he's not meditating, that's one thing. If he's not getting the meditations done because he's learning how to meditate, that's another. So, but I love the solution. I think that's brilliant. That's really brilliant. And of course, you came up with that, right, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know where the idea came from. I have no idea.
Well, still, that's really brilliant. In fact, I'm going to add that to my my helping others when they have trouble with meditation. I think that's a brilliant solution. So very good. Okay, next is Katya. Where's your sister? Oh, that's right. She's taking the course from that other teacher.
Yes. Hi, I rejoice that I am helping ACI Mexico with the accounting and the taxes, and I feel great with that I can help them with the financials.
Very good. That's very powerful. I was in charge of the books at Diamond Mountain until we went into 3-year retreat. And that's a very powerful karmic seed planting. So very good. You having fun doing it?
Yes, I like it.
Good, good. Yeah, thank God for spreadsheets. You know where the term spreadsheet came from? Okay. In accounting, they have these ledgers, these books, and they spread out. They're sheets that spread out. So it's not just one piece of paper like this, it might be 5 or 6. So that's where the term spreadsheet came from. So that's a little something you can add to your absolutely worthless knowledge. Okay. Daria, what do you have to rejoice in?
Good morning, Venerable Sumati. And today I'm rejoiced. Saw I saw a blue sky and one day without war, and I saw a happy people. And the second, we help transcription of text. I say 1, 2 in and bill. And we finished transcription text. I say 1 in Russian.
Wow. Very good. How hard is it to translate from English to Russian? Is it really difficult?
Yeah. But we not translate, we a transcription when you
Transcription.
hear-
Oh, transcription.
transcription, yeah, transcription.
Got it. Yeah, I'm doing that for the Lam Rim course, and
Yeah.
man, thank goodness for transcription services, because I can't type anymore, so it's very laborious for me to try to transcribe something. So I use the software. Okay, who's next? Oh, Layla, good to see you. What can you rejoice in?
Hello, good morning. Good to see you too. I'm rejoicing today at the fact that I have the financial ability and the wisdom to be a lot more selective with the kind of job that I'm looking for. I'm back looking for jobs, wanting to put myself out there. But in the past, I worked on projects and at companies that I didn't quite approve of, or not approve, but I don't think those were great seeds. And now after all the work that I've been putting in and when we've been doing together, the fact that we have this one life and the importance of planting as many good seeds as I can. I'm trying to bring that into my work professionally, and I'm rejoicing that I even have the mental space to be able to think of that and to want to do that, and then also the space financially to be able to do that.
So you're a musician. Are your jobs in the music industry, or are they something else?
The music doesn't pay really. It's the music is a creative outlet. It's a personal creative outlet. What has paid, what pays is I'm in advertising, so I am a creative director, so I work on campaigns for brands.
Oh,
Well,
I've got a new brand for you.
ACI.
I got my spreadsheet. We got my website up for the Tibetan Book of Lists, and ACI has allowed me to use their name. So I need to, we're not up, we don't have all the translations up yet. We have eight translations of the list that are in process. English, Chinese, let's see, what are they? Bulgarian, English, Chinese, that's 3, Spanish 4, Vietnamese 5, German 6, I think I said, well, anyway, we've got 8. And what I'd like to do is figure out some way, it's going to go on the ACI website, but I'd be curious, maybe we could set up a Zoom later and talk about, if you're comfortable, try and talk about how I can go about letting the world know about this list.
That's
so-
what I do.
Okay.
I
After I tell you what, let's see, how can we do this? You can't really stay on afterwards.
I
What?
can.
Can you stay on afterwards? Anna, can we leave her on? Okay, so
Yeah.
stick around
Yeah.
after class and we'll try and figure something out. Okay. Evgeny, what do you have to rejoice in?
Добрый вечер. Спасибо за
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for opportunity. I would like to rejoice that I am in time for this class. I'm recording now this class, but my seeds of disconnection are always with me. But I'm happy that I'm here. I'm happy that I'm connecting people with this wisdom, and that's why I'm clarifying my karma.
Good. Now, am I pronouncing your name right? Is it Evgeny or am I pronouncing it wrong? I'm pronouncing it
Yes.
wrong? Okay.
Yes, you are pronouncing correctly.
Okay. Okay. Anna, we didn't hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Venerable Sumati. Thank you for opportunity to rejoice. About me, I try to incorporate yoga in my daily life, and this week I had 2 lessons, 2 classes of yoga, and I rejoiced very much. I hope in future I can make my a habit to do yoga every day.
Well, good luck, because I did yoga for 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days. And when I got out of 3-year retreat, that was it. So shame on me, but and now my balance is such that doing yoga would be probably dangerous. Okay, so what do I have to rejoice in? Well, let's see. Since class on Monday, working with my publisher a little bit, they sent me the blurb, the dust cover blurbs from my book, and they weren't accurate. So I had to think of a polite but sweet but pleasant way of changing the text. So I did, and they received it very nicely. Instead of saying you got everything wrong, I just corrected some of the mistakes. So I'm very pleased with that. Things are moving along with all the problems I had over the weekend. And I've learned a little bit, and I learned enough about making a website that now I'm dangerous. So we're getting the website together for the Book of Lists. And I'm hoping by the end of the month to have some of the translations. I may put the English one up very soon. So I'm very interested in getting that out to help as many people as possible, because that's what's going to get me the help I need in understanding and teaching in the future. So all around, sounds like everybody's doing a pretty good job of rejoicing. So let's go on to class 4. This material is pretty obtuse in many ways, so just hang in there and see this as background material as much as anything else. So today's class is showing that the Buddha has the qualities of correct perception. Now, since we can, I don't know about you, but I can't see Lord Buddha at this point. So we need to be able to prove these things we can't see. There are 3 things we're trying to establish with valid perception: nirvana, the omniscience of a Buddha, and the path to nirvana and to omniscience. So we refer to the Buddha as a person who has only valid perceptions, always valid perceptions. And a person, we refer to Lord Buddha as the only being that's totally correct. He has only valid perceptions, and the only way to do this is to be omniscient. So the only being that's omniscient is the Buddha. And what does omniscient mean? Omniscience means he or she sees the past, the present, and the future together simultaneously. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. So think how wonderful our world would be. Is there a song that's got that lyric in it? I don't know. For some reason, I'm thinking of a song now that has that lyric. Anyway, think how wonderful the world would be if everyone spoke only things that were 100% true. What if we restricted our speech to things we really knew to be true? There is a person who cannot lie because they have only valid perceptions. They can't hear themselves say an untruth. They can't make something else up because it wouldn't be a valid perception. It doesn't even occur to them to do so. That person's a Buddha. I was thinking about this a little bit this morning when I was exercising, and something I took to be true for many years, I learned this morning was not true. I didn't think that the United States, and this shows how naive I am, I didn't think the United States was out to, I always thought the United States was out to let countries, make sure countries had a chance to have the government that they wanted. I really thought that was a priority for the United States. And this morning I was listening to a program on the Cold War, and these authors made a very good point that the driving force after World War II, the driving force for democracy and for this country in many ways was not so much whether or not a government was good, it was that they weren't communist. And so we supported dictators and awful rulers because we didn't want them to become communists. And that really disturbed me, because why would we support some evil dictator? It didn't seem to be the American way. And then I learned, even more disturbing, that we were interested in promulgating business. So, for instance, in Iran, we overthrew the government in Iran back in the 50s because the government was going to nationalize the oil production in that country, which meant our companies that had made so much money were not going to be able to make that money. And so we overthrew a government because of the oil companies. I find that very disturbing. So I haven't figured out. So how does this relate to Lord Buddha and omniscience? Think what it would be like if all we could do is speak the truth. There's a movie with Ricky Gervais about the invention of lying. If you can and you get access to it, take a look at this movie. It's a comedy, but it's got an interesting premise. In the beginning of the film, people can't lie. And then Ricky Gervais invents lying, and it gets going. There's some real quandaries in the film. I recommend, if you can get a copy of it, to take a look at it. There are some amusing conversations on a date that he has that where the two of them can't lie. It's kind of cute. Anyway, back to what would it be like if we couldn't lie? And I think we've seen the struggle we all have when we are talking about white lies, how we tell white lies constantly during the day, little tiny ones, but since they're a lie, that's planting a seed which is going to grow. So it's hard to think of a world where everybody spoke only the truth. But then you'd have to say to yourself, whose truth? But that's another stone to unturned later. The Buddha sees everything directly. They don't have the need for logic or reasoning because they see everything in the past, present, and future simultaneously. The Buddha is aware that logical perception exists because she or he sees this in other beings' minds. The two types of objects that a Buddha can see. The Buddha has omniscience, which is the direct, valid perception of each and every object in the universe, the totality of all things and the nature of all things. That's pretty hard for me to comprehend. The only description I've seen or can remember is in Dune, the novel Dune. At one point, the hero takes, well, it's a long story, but he goes through this perception of everything in the universe, and it blows his mind. So I can't wrap my head around seeing everything simultaneously. The Buddha has direct, valid perception of everything that ever was, presently is, or ever will be. We're going to be talking about this more in the next class. I keep saying that, but we are going to talk about this more in the next class. The Buddha sees everything, the totality of all objects, their conventional nature. He sees existing things as they really are, their emptiness. And he can concentrate on the ultimate and deceptive reality simultaneously. A Buddha is the only one who can see both ultimate and deceptive reality at the same time. That direct perception of emptiness, we're not able to do that. So how do we know this? We're going to be talking about that in class 5. We see obvious objects with a direct normal perception. The way we see hidden objects is with reasoning, deductive reasoning. The way we see deeply hidden objects is by authority. So this is what we're constantly thinking and trying to do, is how can we say that Lord Buddha does this when we can't see it? So the question comes up, does the Buddha recollect anything? Because if he recollects something, it's not a direct, valid perception, but we know that Buddhas have only direct, valid perceptions. So there's the question, the debating question of, do they have recollection? And they simultaneously see the past, the present, and the future. So each moment of thought is everything. There's no recollection because each moment of thought, they're seeing everything. It's a fresh perception, each moment of thought. The omniscience of a Buddha is a state of mind and therefore a changing thing. It constantly changes as objects in the universe change. However, we can say that the Buddha's mind remains always omniscient. So that's how they can have constant valid perceptions. Now, in the West, well, can I say the West? That's interesting. When I say the West, I think I should say, well, I don't want to say developed countries because that's a pejorative. I think the society as a whole, whether it be in this country or other countries, we tend to think how we think is a rational process. We claim to be rational, but we just accept things the way they are. We let science explain how things happen, but we don't require anyone to explain why things happen. This goes back to the medicine, the aspirin that works sometimes to relieve a headache and sometimes it doesn't. So we say Lord Buddha teaches us about karma and emptiness, and that explains what's going on. So do we just accept anything Lord Buddha says? What about someone who claims to be a Buddha? Do we just accept what they say? No. There are 3 tests for what the Buddha says. The 3 tests are: the statement Lord Buddha makes in the scripture cannot be disproved by any direct perception you have had, or ever will have. The scriptural statement cannot be contradicted by precise logical reasoning. And nothing that the maker of the relevant statement ever said contradicts what they said later. So what does this all mean? So we have these 3 tests. The Lord Buddha said, don't just accept what I say, apply these 3 tests. Lord Buddha is famous for a statement: if you give to others, you will have possessions. If you keep your morality, you will be happy. He's speaking karmically, which generally means that these are the results you'll get in your next life or later in this life. If you give to others, you'll have possessions, the things you need and want. If you keep morality, you'll be happy. These are statements that can only be confirmed with scriptural authority, because we can't see the result from causes directly. So if we apply this to check for the authority of the statements, there's literal and figurative. We've talked about the literal and the figurative with the idea of killing your mother and father, what he's talking about there. There's a slightly different version of that, which I want to go through now. So, your mother and father, you must kill them. That's a statement he made. Was the statement literal or figurative? I.e., you must break your attachment to your home, your parents, your homes and friends so they don't hinder your spiritual progress. That's what he means by killing your mother and father. So he says that, and we think, well, Lord Buddha couldn't be telling, wait a minute, here's Lord Buddha telling us to kill somebody. That doesn't make sense. How could he be doing that? That would be incorrect. Well, when you hear that, you need to stop and think, we believe wouldn't say something like that without some reason for it. So instead of saying, okay, it's okay for me to go kill my mother and father, what does he really mean? Is that a figurative or a literal statement? And what he means in one version is that you need to break your attachment to your parents, your home, and your friends so they don't hinder your spiritual progress. I like my example, not because it's my example, it just means more to me. The example of kill your mother and father means kill your mental afflictions. They're like your mother and father. They give birth to all the problems in our world. So if you kill your mental afflictions by reaching nirvana, then you've literally taken, it's figurative to kill them, but if you do the idea of killing your mental afflictions, you've literally done what Lord Buddha is asking us to do. So when you hear a teacher or you say something that doesn't make sense, or you read something in one of the sutras that doesn't make sense, that's when you have to stop. And as I've said in the past, put it on the back burner and try and figure out, wait for a teaching that explains it. It's difficult. Well, as you all know, it's difficult to practice this in real life. It's difficult to be a good logician. We have to be able to consider all the different possibilities and check to see what is true. So again, we have to be careful not to judge. And that's where maybe the bottom line to most of this is coming, is because we can't see the past, present, and future simultaneously, because we can't yet see ultimate and deceptive reality at the same time, we tend to judge. Geshe Michael gave an example of not receiving a shipment of diamonds they had ordered. Was it because the dealer didn't have them? Was it because he got a better price to sell them to somebody else? Is he holding them, hoping to get a better price from them? We can't really know until we call to find out, but our minds come up with a reason and react. Logically, we could apply reasons to each of these thoughts and reject it as something to act upon until we know what's for certain going on. To apply to our own lives, we would refrain from judging any others or circumstances until we've considered all the possibilities. So the present day politics in the United States are a very good example of people hearing something. Well, this is my pet peeve for social media. Anybody can say anything on social media. Am I advocating that there should be censorship? No. But what I'm saying is, if you hear anything on social media, if you hear me teach anything you don't understand or agree to, research it. See if you can find why I might have said that, or why Lord Buddha said that, or why former President Trump said something. Don't just accept it. And don't accept someone else's opinion of it. You need to look. The worst thing you can do is find someone who you agree with and they don't do the research and prove the point. What's a good example from the books I've written? I've come across that more than once. Let me think about that for just a second. Oh man, there was one example with the Titan program. Well, I'm not coming up with it. But my point is very simple. If you're going to have an opinion of something, make sure that you've got the best information you can have. Because then you're doing something of value versus just judging others. And the important thing is having an opinion that's backed up by fact, to me, can easily turn into a judgment, but you shouldn't. It's just as easy not to make a judgment. So I have an opinion. I have an opinion of former President Trump. I don't believe what he says. Now, can I say that because I've backed it up with looking into what he says? Yes, I can I can work with people I trust and believe them. Now, that's a problem. Are they telling me the truth? Well, it's up to me to look into that and determine whether I can believe what they're saying. And if I can't, I need to stop a judge. Instead of judging, I need to wait and find out as much information as I can before then I can have an opinion. So the statement by Lord Buddha that cannot be contradicted by direct, airtight reasoning, we shouldn't accept it until we've just checked it out. Part of the thing is we can't disprove the statement. Nothing ever said before contradicts what he said later about anything. When we've reached a deep level of our study and understanding of the Buddha's teachings, we come to an understanding, a perception that there is nothing in the Kangyur, the 100,000 pages of scripture, that contradicts another statement. There are absolutely no contradictions, although there seems to be some, like this kill your mother or father. We don't really go into the figurative versus literal till the very end of the foundation courses. So that can be somewhat frustrating to new students. How do we know when to take a scripture literally? There are 3 rules for determining when to take a statement literally. So these 3 rules are, number 1, what is the true intent of the statement? What did he have in mind when he said it? For the statement, kill your mother and father, it was to get us to develop an attitude of giving up our attachment to things. Don't let them hold us back from spiritual practice. The karma class told us that if we kill our mother and father, that's one of the 5 heinous crimes. So why would he say to do that? Again and again and again. We need to say that that's not true. So he must have had something else in mind. So what else did he have in mind? So he says something that's not true. Instead of saying, well, Lord Buddha just told me to kill my parents, I don't believe in Lord Buddha anymore. You stop and you say, okay, what point is he trying to prove? Then see if you can understand the point. And if you can't, then obviously there's a problem. In the case of Lord Buddha, there's always a point that he's trying to make that we need to understand. Is there a compelling need to make a certain statement? Does it achieve a certain purpose? For instance, the 3 turnings of the wheel. In the 3 turnings of the wheel, he talks about emptiness. He talks about some things appear to be are self-existent, which we know from our teachings that nothing's self-existent. So why would he say it's something self-existent? Well, he was teaching to the level of the students at that particular moment. So he had to say it in a way, he had to talk about the Dharma in a way that would keep those students interested in it. He had a compelling reason. He knew if he laid the whole truth on them, it would freak them out. So he taught something not strictly correct in order to ease their minds along the path to understanding emptiness. So I think it's very important to understand. I can't express it clearly enough today. I'm having trouble doing that. Well, I tell you what, let's see if I've covered what's in the homework. That's the most important thing. Describe the term valid or correct perception is sometimes used with reference not to a state of mind, but to Lord Buddha himself. This is because of special objects towards which only Buddha has correct perception. So describe the two parts of this object. Lord Buddha sees the totality of all objects, referring to all things that belong in our normal world. He sees all existing things as they really are. The ultimate, the emptiness or ultimate nature. Lord Buddha cannot be a being who is totally correct if he has any state of mind that is not valid or correct perception. So if he has recollection, something you have if you perceive something earlier, that's not considered to be a correct perception because you're perceiving an image of the object you saw, not the object itself. So does Lord Buddha ever see something he saw before, and does this mean he is capable of a perception which is not correct? And we talked about that. Lord Buddha sees all things of the past, present, and future simultaneously all the time. Therefore, he does not rely upon recollection, but is instead always perceiving everything directly and freshly. So every instance of a Buddha's thought process is seeing the past, the present, and the future simultaneously. So there's nothing to recollect because it's all fresh. Every moment of his thinking is everything there is to think about. So he doesn't have to stop and think, well, I wonder, what about this? What about that? He doesn't have to recollect anything. I can't even conceive of what that must be like. So what are the three methods for a normal person to determine that the Buddha is totally correct? So you need to remember these three things. A teaching cannot be disproved by any direct valid perception that we have or have had. The teachings cannot be disproved by any airtight reasoning, which is very difficult to have. The teachings themselves are free from any internal inconsistency. Nothing Lord Buddha said at one time contradicts what he said at another. If you see, as you read, you think you see something Lord Buddha said as being contradicted, you need to stop. You need to think whether it's literal or figurative, and you need to give the thought that he's teaching to a different level of student. So I guess it comes to a fine line for us to understand whether something is sort of true. No, that's not the word I want to use. It's kind of true, but it's not absolutely true. So that's a skill. Well, is that a white lie? That's an interesting thought. Is a white lie something that's sort of true but not absolutely true? I'm digging a hole here.
I had a similar question around that, what you're bringing up, around like when the example you gave of Buddha teaching something figuratively to make it more compelling to students, the example you gave to not overwhelm them, how's that different from lying as well?
Well, I think we just dug a hole, Layla.
Yeah.
Just dug a hole. Let's work with that. Is that a one? Well, that's an interesting, that's really an interesting question, because basically he's saying some things are self-existent, wink, wink, and I guess the thing we'd have to do is look at the language, the actual language, and see if what he said had in it said he added to that something like, for now, maybe he said, for now, this is what I'd like you to believe. Because then he's implying that down the road there's something more. So I'll tell you what, I'll try and look at the turnings of the wheel teachings from course 15 and see if I can come up with how he seemed to hint that that wasn't the real answer, but it would do for now. But that's an interesting thought, because obviously the Lord Buddha can't lie. Nor
There's
might.
also in the tests for checking if what someone is saying is accurate or Buddha is the third one, nothing he's ever said before contradicts what he said later. But then isn't the one who turned correct referring to Buddha that he wasn't already enlightened? So what about what he said before he was enlightened?
Well, then that wasn't those.
That doesn't.
Yeah, he wasn't a being who was totally correct. The only way he became a being that was totally correct was when he became enlightened. So before that, he wasn't totally correct. I guess that's the idea of when we say Lord Buddha is one who is totally correct, it implies that he wasn't always totally correct.
I see.
I have to excuse myself for a minute. I'll be right back. I think I may have come up with the answer, Layla. Now, how can it just occurred to me. It went into my mind and came out. Oh, come on, David, you can figure this out. A white lie is saying something, well, I think what we'll find in the turnings of the wheel is that Lord Buddha said things are kind of self-existent and implied to those students, that there was something else, but for now, it was okay to think of it as things as self-existent. Well, no, I think what he said was, we see things are self-existent, but they're not really self-existent. And he said that in a way that comforted the first turning of the wheel students. What was my example? So a white lie. If you say, okay, let's say I say, I like okra. I don't particularly like okra, but I've been told I don't like okra because it's not been prepared properly. So I'm waiting for someone to prepare okra for me that I'll like. But if I say I don't like okra, if I say I like okra just to be nice, am I lying because I don't really like okra? I would have to say I was lying. So that would be a white lie to not offend the host that had made a special meal out of okra. But it would be a lie. So Lord Buddha is saying in the first turning of the wheel that things. Now I need to look more carefully at my memory of the first turning of the wheel. I will do that before next class, and I will have an answer for you. Because obviously Lord Buddha doesn't lie. So, and he doesn't tell white lies. So how do we maybe that'll help us to understand the concept of a white lie. Well, let's see. There is no part of the scriptures that aren't sweetly matched to the minds that are studying them. If it seems differently, we haven't studied them well. I hate to keep putting the answers to this off, but it's really course 15 that answers a lot of these questions.
I had a few other questions if we are in question land. Is that all right?
Sorry, say again?
I had some more questions
Oh,
that
sure.
maybe
Sure, go
if
ahead.
if I guess talking about obvious hidden and deeply hidden realities, if even an obvious reality with something that you have seemingly valid perception of, if that can still be wrong, because I'm thinking of an example, for instance, let's say you don't know you have hepatitis and you see the snow and you really think it's but you are not drunk, you're not, but you seemingly, you think you have valid perception and this is obvious reality. If even obvious reality with seemingly valid perception can still be wrong, how can we comfortably move towards knowing anything really?
Say that again.
If even obvious reality with seemingly valid perception, if that can still be wrong, how can we comfortably move towards saying that we know anything?
Well, that's a good question. So how about an example of valid perception? Go ahead and give me more of an example. Let me see if I can work with that.
I guess the example is either it's something seems like it's obvious reality and it isn't, or either you think you have valid perception, but you don't. Let's say you don't.
Well, then it's not a valid perception.
But then you think you have full valid perception. Let's say if you're colorblind and you don't know that you're colorblind.
Yeah.
Um,
Then it's a valid perception for you. If you're colorblind and you don't see yellow, for you it's a valid perception because you can't see yellow. Yellow, there's no concept of yellow in your mind. Your concept of yellow would be this. So the sun is yellow and it's warm. So anytime you feel something warm, you would associate that with yellow, and you'd be right for you. But for
yeah,
me, I would say, well, yellow doesn't have the distinction of heat or cold. It's a color. And how do you explain the concept of yellow? So a colorblind person is having a valid perception for their world, and I'm having a valid perception for my world. But my valid perception and your valid perception could be different for your particular uh, experience. Does that make sense?
yeah. So this is maybe another example to, for instance, I think I'm starting to understand if it's accurate in the object being obvious reality, like it's not being tricked by anyone. There's no mirrors. There's nothing. It's and you do actually have valid perception. Then it's something because I guess even in obvious reality, or even if you think you have valid perception, you can be mistaken, and it can be either from the object that maybe it's not really even there, maybe it's a projection and you don't know it's really there, but you think it's there, and you think you have valid perception, but let's say you're colorblind and you don't know it, or you're
Well, I think it
maybe
comes down
not,
to
yeah.
the definition of a valid perception is one that's not tainted by strong emotion or alcohol or drugs. So, so for me, for a blind person, not a blind, well, yeah, a blind person, or a deaf person who can't hear. So their perception of a drum is someone banging on something. And that's a valid perception for them because in their world, there is no sound. And so there can't be a sound. So the fact that in my world there's a sound doesn't make their perception invalid. It would be invalid for me to say, you should be hearing a sound because drums, when they're beaten, make a sound. But
I understand, yeah.
But it's the universe you're talking about. Now,
Yeah.
the difference is Lord Buddha sees everything, sees your thoughts, my thoughts, the blind person's thoughts, the deaf person's thoughts, and it puts that all into perspective. So he sees the emptiness of it, and he sees the deceptive reality of it at the same time, which is something we can't. So maybe that's what we're coming to with this idea of a lie, a white lie. He perceives that in order for someone of a certain level of training to begin to understand karma and emptiness, that he needs to tell them a version that they'll be able to accept. Now, is he lying to them? That's still an interesting question, because it still comes down to the absolute, well, what's an absolute truth? No, I have to look at that. That's, that's another very good question. I'm so glad that, yeah, I have students that ask me difficult questions. That's,
I have a
Mhm.
couple more. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
This one's about a guy. I wasn't here last class, and we were talking in last class around the things that make valid perception not valid perception. One of them being speculation and assumption.
Hmm.
And I was thinking around the deductive valid perception versus speculation and assumption, and how to know which is which. Because we're supposed to be deductive, but to a certain extent, to not cross over, I guess, to speculation and assumption.
Okay, so I'm sorry, what's your question?
How to know if you're in deductive valid perception land, or if you're in speculation assumption land.
How to know which one you're in?
Yeah, because we're supposed to use both our direct valid perception and our deductive valid perception. But one of the things that doesn't makes your valid perception inaccurate is speculation and assumption.
Right. Well, that basically says to me that
Yeah.
Deductive reasoning, it's very hard to have airtight deductive reasoning because at some point you're speculating. For instance, I'm seeing you, I'm assuming you're seated on a couch. I don't know that, but I'm speculating you're seated on a couch. So one could say I'm speculating, the other is saying I'm deducing. So what's the difference between speculating and deducing? I think in deducing, you're trying to, for me, if I'm trying to deduce you're seated on a couch, I'm looking for reasons to support that. I'm deducing you're sitting on what appears to be, well, basically it looks blue, maybe it's a dark green, and you're seated, so that means you're sitting on something. You're not on the floor. So I'm deducing. Now, speculation might be, well, it's blue, so it could be a chair, it could be a couch, it could be a beanbag. That's speculation. To me, deduction is going the next step and finding out what it is. So
Gathering information.
gathering information, speculating would be it's blue, it must be a couch, and that's it, doesn't matter. Versus saying it's blue, I need to ask Layla what she's sitting on because I can't see it. That would be helping with deductive reasoning. Speculation would be it could be anything she's sitting on. I'm not going to bother looking into the details.
Okay, so speculation assumption is not really doing your homework and gathering information to properly deduce.
Right. Deduction means to me, deduction means taking, for instance, I can't see, I can see two hands now, but I can't see both arms. But deductive reasoning says you have arms, you have hands. I can see your shoulder, I can see your hand. There must be an arm between there. Speculation would be, well, what could possibly be connecting her arm? She's an alien.
Assumption would be like I have legs, even though you've never seen.
Yeah, right. But in deductive, the assumption would be you have legs. The deduction would be I see you get up and walk, even though the camera doesn't show me your legs. I can deduce that you've got some way of mobility. Now, you could be in a wheelchair, but again, I would have to deduce, I would have to.
Yeah, this is a tricky one to catch myself. I personally find it tricky to catch myself when I'm making a speculation.
Yeah.
To think of it as a speculation instead of deductive, because sometimes I think that speculation is sometimes I really believe it, and that that gets me
But
into
see,
trouble sometimes.
I think speculation is more along the lines of judgment, whereas deductive reasoning is trying to find the answer, is using logic. I know you, I've seen you walk, so I know you have legs. So I know I can deduce that your legs are there.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. What else do you have? Fire away.
Okay, when we say the statement, when one of the ways to question, to check to see if something is accurate is the statement can't be disproved by any direct perception you have or have had. Does that mean past valid perception is still valid?
Yeah, recollection. For instance, the Eiffel Tower. I have seen the Eiffel Tower in person. So I can recollect the Eiffel Tower. And to me, that's an accurate, it's not a, well, I believe our school takes valid recollection as a valid perception. I think the lower schools don't, because it's not, you're not present at the moment doing it. But my recollection of the Eiffel Tower is as valid as being there.
Okay.
So,
I think I understand that. I don't quite understand not relying on recollection, on past valid perceptions
well, we
to
do.
judge if something is, that makes
But
sense.
see, you said the word judge, and that's, I think, it's a fine line between judgment, and speculation and valid perception. How can I put this? I think our ignorance in truly understanding how the world works makes our valid perceptions turn into judgments pretty easily, because we tend to think, bottom line, something's self-existent, even though we know it isn't. So we have to be careful that our valid perceptions don't turn into judgment. And that's where understanding what a valid perception is and how to work with them is so important in the teachings. And that's what we're trying to get through on this course. And I don't know that I'm doing a very good job of it now, but we're gonna be looking in the next class in a little more detail. And I hope we can come down to some final facts that will be of use. Because it's very important that we do believe in past and future lives. It's very important that we believe in karma and emptiness. And we can only use, right now, karma and emptiness are deductive for me. Well, it's the how, it comes down to the how and the why. Right now, we have excellent understanding of the how. I get Parkinson's because I worked with organic chemicals that damaged my brain. Okay, that's the how. But the why, if everybody who used benzene in organic class 101 in Riverside, California in 1973, if everybody got cancer from using that benzene, then we have the how. But since they don't, the why doesn't make any sense until you think of karma and emptiness. But we live in a world where the how is what we accept and the why we just ignore. We try and rationalize with the reason I got it was because I have the genes for it. Well, why do I have the genes for it? So how I got Parkinson's is I worked with organic chemicals. Why I got, sorry, Mike, you distracted me for a minute. The how I got Parkinson's is because of the organic chemicals. The why I got Parkinson's isn't because I had the genes to have Parkinson's, because how did I get the genes to have Parkinson's? There's the why there. So you keep looking at the hows and it all comes back to the why. And the why is the karma. That's just, but we don't go there because things are self-existent, or we believe they're self-existent. So it really comes down to that, just that simply, the how and the why. Every time you think you've got an answer for the how and the why, it's more likely the how, yet another how. How I got Parkinson's, I worked with organic chemicals. Why I got Parkinson's was because my genes. No, my genes are the how I got Parkinson's. The why I got Parkinson's is because of how I treated others in the past and was inconvenienced a lot of people. It's not the genetics, it's not the chemical, it's not the fault of the UC Riverside chemistry department. It's because of my past deeds. So go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry, you repeat what you said?
So the conversation we were just having, I was like listening to it and I thought I understood it. And then we're talking about it. I'm like, wait a second, I don't understand this. So valid perception is different than valid interpretation of what that perception means. So just because like to validly perceive something means that like I'm just seeing, like I'm not hallucinating.
Right.
Like and I'm not like so angry that I'm just blind and my mind is just
Right.
creating nonsense.
Right.
So like just because I'm perceiving something doesn't mean that how I'm interpreting it is correct.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. What we're talking about perceiving is I see a brick wall behind you. I see a brick wall behind you. I'm not on drugs. I'm not particularly angry or overjoyed. I see a wall behind you. That's a valid perception. Now, when I look at that wall and I go, well, there are two different kinds of brick. That's a valid perception. Unless I'm saying to myself, one set of brick looks nicer than the others. That's not a valid perception. That's an opinion. That could be, in Layla's terms, that could be a speculation. So even in our valid perception, we're aware that it's not necessarily true. Well, yeah. So my valid perception that that's a brick wall, that could be a veneer. That could be an interior decorator's veneer that looks like brick wall. But right now, based on what I have in front of me, that's a valid perception. So it's the difference between to me, the difference between a valid perception and a correct perception. Well, now the brick wall is turned into the Bellagio. So now is that a correct perception? Well, part of me says it is because I'm seeing it. The other part of me says that I'm on drugs because now I've gone to Las Vegas and another part of Las Vegas. So I say to myself, is that a valid perception? I deduce that no, it isn't, because I know Mike is in Baltimore, so he can't be in Las Vegas. So I've deduced that that isn't a valid, it's a valid perception if I understand it's a slide in the background. It's not a valid perception if I think he's actually in Las Vegas. So valid perception is a slippery slope because we think we have valid perceptions all the time, and we do, but to me, we automatically make a judgment from that valid perception, and that's where we get ourselves in trouble. It's not that I'm not perceiving, I am perceiving the wall behind Mike as brick. That's a valid perception. But if I look at it and say, well, one brick's it's a different color, I wonder why So immediately my mind goes, well, there are two different bricks joined up in that wall. What'd they do? Brick in a window? Now I'm speculating, and I need to then go through the deductive reasoning to understand whether that second color brick is that they bricked in a window. So I think the point of this idea of valid perception is to understand how quickly we go from the information we believe to be true and make a story about it. And what Lord Buddha has is the ability to see valid perceptions and deceptive reality at the same time, so that they know what I'm seeing is or is not a valid perception and whether I'm judging it.
There's an interesting study about the split brain with that they did with split brain patients, where if a person is missing one side of their brain, or what they did, I'm not explaining it really well, but the results from the findings of the study were that the brain started filling in information, filling in the gaps, even though it wasn't there. For instance, if someone got up from their seat and didn't know exactly why they got up from their seats, and you ask them, why did you just get up from your seat? The person would then make up something that wasn't really true, just because that's what the brain does. Yeah, so I guess this is to say, like we're physically also kind of programmed, right, to narrativize. Is that a word?
I don't think it's a word, but I understand what you're saying. We're making up stories all the time.
Yeah.
We're making up narratives that are comfortable for us. And then they're not, how can I? They're deceptive reality. They're not ultimate reality. So we're taking valid perceptions and making a story from them and judging, instead of what happens with Lord Buddha is he or she has a direct perception, valid perception every instant. There's no story to go with it. That's just simply a valid perception. So what would Lord Buddha see with that wall behind Mike? I don't know. I have no idea. So I'm curious, Mike, is that different color brick over your left shoulder, is that filling in a window? What used to be a window? You see that seam looks to be.
So it used to be in like it would go into the next row house. They used to be connected by a big walkway. So it's like a doorway.
Okay, a doorway. Well, good.
Yeah.
I'm not on drugs.
No, valid perception. Now your opinion of it, that's a different story.
Oh, that had me worried for a minute. Okay, I understand. This is, as you might be able to tell, it's confusing to me as well. Course 4 and course 13 remain confusing to me after all these years. But I will get an answer to the 3 turnings of the wheel question, and I will have that for you next class, because that's an important thing we need to settle, because Lord Buddha doesn't tell white lies, or does he? Because he knows that's the best thing that can be done for a particular student. That'll be an interesting answer to get. Okay, so let's dedicate the confusion. By the goodness of what I've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the source of benefit and goodness, the Dharma, spread and expand. May the beings upholding the Dharma have excellent health, May the source of happiness and well-being for all embodied beings, the Dharma as taught by the Buddhas, always increase. And may, may all my students continue to ask me difficult questions so that I may learn from them and better my teaching. I don't want any of you to ever be afraid of asking me a question.
Very appreciative for the level of care for all the answers. Thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure. Okay, hang on there, Layla. We're going to talk about marketing.
Yes.
Okay, everybody,
I-
take care. And we'll see you with hopefully some decent answers to some of these questions on Monday. Right. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.